Hey, this is Heather Christie, and welcome to the Evolve to Win show. Today, I have with me Terry Powell from the Entrepreneur Source. Hey, Terry.
Hey, Heather, how are you?
I'm doing great, thanks. How are you doing?
I'm excited to be on with you today.
Well, I'm so excited to have you. And being that we're starting off Thanksgiving week, I have to start off with gratitude for you for agreeing to do this show with me. And the reason this came up was that Terry and I were having a conversation last week at the tail end of his first ever virtual conference, which we're going to get into in just a moment. And you had some feedback about some of the major challenges you had in switching from an in-person to a virtual. And I said, you know what, there's so many people going through that same thing right now. Would you be willing to share? And you kindly accepted. So thank you for being with me today.
My pleasure.
All right. So I have a little bit of information about Terry and his background in the show notes. So take a look at that. But I want to just give a high level overview. And I certainly can't possibly do you justice with your incredible background. So then I'm going to just dive in and ask you some questions and have you tell us about it. But Terry he created this company called the Entrepreneur Source. So he's the visionary founder of the Entrepreneur Source. And what I want to start off is I want to have him tell us a little bit about how he created this amazing company that I think has been around. Is it 36 years now?
Yes, correct.
Right.
36.
So 6 years in business, which in and of itself is such an incredible accomplishment. But essentially, I came originally when I first moved from being a lawyer to business owner. I started off as a franchisee, and I hadn't met you yet, so I didn't get to do work with you to find my franchise initially. But I love the organization that you created and have since grown to over 100 franchisees who support you in building and growing your organization. So can you just tell us a little bit about the Entrepreneur Source and how you found that need in the marketplace?
Yeah, I'd love to. As you mentioned, 36 years in business. We are in what we refer to as the career ownership coaching business. And because of the battered investor syndrome that's evolved over those 30 plus years in and out, we saw a need for people that were struggling with career transition and not knowing what to do with themselves. Mm-hmm. And we kept hearing from them as a coach, their struggle to want to be more self-sufficient and take control of their destiny. So we developed the company to provide a platform where they could have one-on-one coaching with trained coaches from our franchise system to be able to guide them and ferret them through the mirage of franchises and business opportunities that are out there. It started working pretty quickly from the beginning, and as it's grown, as you mentioned, quite rapidly.
So what's amazing for me to just even hear this again, Terry, from you is the fact that it's been 36 years. You created a model that coaches people through that very challenging transition, right? One thing I can tell you about moving from having a career and working for actually a law firm in my case to becoming an entrepreneur is that you don't know what you don't know. Right. And the fact that you plugged in a coaching concept that long ago, I mean, that's like, you must have been very, very early on the innovator curve because coaching didn't really exist, certainly wasn't anywhere close to mainstream back then. So how did you come up with coaching as that concept to get people the assistance?
It's kind of interesting. I was ready to launch it back in the early 80s and was looking for the way to approach this. And I had been doing some research on the very early stages of people talking about coaching in business and being able to coach individuals for careers and things of that nature. So I picked up on that, did some research, and I decided just to go with it, follow my instincts, and just talk about it as coaching. People were unfamiliar with coaching. It was kind of foreign. Some of them called us consultants, which was fine. But we kind of worked through that first 3 to 5 years. Back then, I had trouble. If you stopped me in the middle of saying the Entrepreneur Source or spelling it, I had to start over from the beginning in order to spell it. So coaching was a whole nother issue that we had to resolve, but it worked out well and we persevered, and the coaching model really resonated. We were the very first coaching organization, we think, in the world, purely coaching individuals around careers and business ownership.
Wow. Yeah, it's incredible. I mean, truly, truly innovative that you took that path during that time. I mean, now coaching is so widespread and so mainstream. I imagine that with as much shift as has been going on in 2020 with the pandemic and shift in people are really, really thinking now about their values and what's important in life. And I imagine that your coaches right now are probably inundated with people who are really interested in exploring those options. Is that true?
That's absolutely true. We've never been so busy. This past year has just been phenomenal. I stood on stage at our conference 3 years ago and talked about some of the digital innovation and things we were going to do that was going to accelerate their business development growth without their needing to be doing it themselves. Little did I know that a pandemic would come along and accelerate it 3 to 5 times what it was. So the coaches have been very busy. They've been very grateful for the individuals that have reached out to them. They've been able to help far more people than we've ever been able to help in a year, which means we're going to have a banner year this year.
Amazing. And so just to be clear, although we're not here necessarily to talk specifically about how people get in touch with you and use your services, I would be doing a huge disservice to everyone out there who is in that space of thinking about career transition if we didn't really share with them exactly who you serve and how you serve them. So if somebody's, you talked about battered investor or battered, what was the other one?
Career syndrome.
Battered career syndrome. That's right. And in fact, you have a book out called Your Career 2.0, which I happen to just have a copy right here with me that I read through. And I wished that I had had this back in the day when I was really thinking about making a transition. Tell us a little bit, very specifically, who do you serve and how do you serve them?
We use a term called seekers. We stumbled across this element that there's a lot of people that are seeking help or advice about their careers, their direction, just looking for advice. And we realized that a lot of that had to do with changing career paths, moving into being more self-sufficient, taking control of their destiny. So we really started to build upon that and start to attract those individuals who really didn't know what to do or how to go about it, and just really introduce them to the career ownership coaching methodology and help them feel safe about that they could share their goals, needs, and expectations. And we talked to them about how to build a career that drives income, lifestyle, wealth, and equity, which, by the way, a job will never do. So that's part of what our DNA is and what's really grown the company.
Got it. So, interestingly enough, when you think about people who are in this place of career transition, you have people who have always thought about becoming an entrepreneur, right? There are people who know that they've always wanted to start a business and they're just not sure where to go. What about those people who have just found themselves maybe downsized during this pandemic, but they haven't really thought about business ownership as one of their options or franchising as one of their options? What do you say to those people?
Well, it's interesting. What we've learned over the years is about 75% of the adult population has a strong to very strong desire to become self-sufficient. But 95% of that 75% is scared to death to be self-employed. So we had to bridge that in our coaching methodology to create a safe space that allow them to be able to learn how they could survive that transition. Most people don't have a desire to be an entrepreneur. They just want to be self-sufficient, take control of their destiny, be able to support their family, not have to get on a plane and fly around the country without their being able to see their kids play soccer. Those kind of basic things that we all strive for.
Yeah, got it. So if there's somebody who has thought about it, wanted it, but too scared, they can still enter in the process and kind of learn about what those options are. Is that true?
Absolutely. That's a safe space we create for them.
Okay. All right, good. Well, what I did was I put your website on there for anyone who's interested in learning more about the Entrepreneur Source and the coaching opportunities for career ownership. So take a look. I highly encourage you, if you're in that space where you're thinking about a transition, this is a really great place to start, gather some information, really understand what those options are. But here's what we're here to talk about today, Terry, is what happened with your conference this year? So I want to start off by you sharing just a little bit of what it looked like before 2020. What was your annual conference all about, and how did it happen?
Yeah, we've had them for 20 some years, I think 26 years, where we bring together our franchisees and a group of the franchisors that we work with to help them be able to learn more about our concept, and for our coaches to be able to learn more about the franchises that are out there for them. So we've been doing them live, pretty big events. I think our largest one was 550 attendees. We do them in some pretty nice, you know, beachfront types of locations and things over the years. So it's not only a lot of fun, but there's a lot that takes place there of camaraderie and training and education for our coaches. This year we did the first one ever virtual, and we actually had you participate in our first ever virtual conference. You got a chance to understand a little bit about it.
I did. So just to recap, for more than 25 years, I think you said 26 years, yep, you've been doing them live and in person.
Yep.
You've had them as large as 550 attendees. Yep. And when you think about annual conferences in general, I'm a huge fan of annual conferences. And listen, if you're watching this or listening to this and you have annual conferences, but you only have 20 or 30 or 50 people, still be thinking about this concept is, you know, that you're there for networking, building relationships, camaraderie. You're there for training, for education, and there's really nothing that replaces that ability to connect. So Terry, clearly you were faced with the decision that many people have been faced with this year, which is, what do we do? Do we hold it live and take that risk? Do we cancel it all together because online just could never be as good? Or do we take a chance and do it virtual? And I want you to, before you talk about the decision you made, can you just walk us through, like, what was that like for you? I mean, was that a stressful time, a stressful decision to be making?
Yeah, I actually turned out to be the biggest barrier to being open-minded about shifting to virtual of anybody in our company. I was the biggest barrier.
Okay.
I was totally freaked out about this. I was convinced that it just wasn't going to be worth it to do it. But fortunately, we have a great group of franchisees, and they were reaching out to me, telling me what their concerns and plans were. We have a great group of franchisor members. They were supportive, and I have a great team that encouraged it and kind of held my hand through it, even though I was freaking out. And, you know, we had a good organization helping us run the event virtually. So I went kicking and screaming into the idea of a virtual conference.
So you shared a couple of thoughts you were having. You were scared that there's no way that a virtual conference could replace what you've been doing, right? So was that your biggest concern as a starting point?
Yeah, I mean, listen, I had 25 years of successful live large events where people got together and build rapport and, you know, made friends and connected back with friends they haven't seen all year. So it's really an amazing event, and I was concerned that it wouldn't be valuable enough for them to participate in.
Got it. And so, as you were going through and making a decision, were you getting different advice from different people? Like some saying, if you hold it live, we're not going.
Yep.
Was that happening?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, we had about half and half. In fact, many of our franchisors said that, you know, came to us in a very proactive way and said they had made a conscious decision. I remember one gentleman called that he said he and his wife had made a decision that they were not going to travel anywhere for the rest of this year, which obviously was going to be beyond our conference. And he said, and I've also talked to a number of other franchisees that are concerned and feel the same way. They just want to make sure that you're aware of that. Yeah. So thankfully they reached out and helped me see that.
Good. So the good news is you were seeking feedback, you were getting feedback, even sometimes unsolicited, about what people were willing to do and what they weren't willing to do. Now, was there anybody who was saying, if you do it virtually, it's not going to be the same, or we're not going to attend an online conference? Did you get some of that?
Yeah. I mean, based on having attended our conferences live, it was literally a huge mental barrier for most anyone to believe it could be successful virtually. It's just that kind of an event. You can't comprehend how we're going to pull this off in a virtual manner. So we had a lot of naysayers, including myself, and critics that just didn't think it was going to be worth it, or that we should even invest the dollars, because it's expensive to do it live. It's almost equally expensive to do it virtually, for the things you need to do to balance out that the experience for people. So it's a huge commitment financially, and we wanted to make sure we were delivering on that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so talk a little bit of just high level about the investment in virtual, because I imagine there are people out there who are thinking, well, how could it possibly cost even close to run a virtual conference? Like, all you got to do is get a Zoom link and you're off and running, right?
That's true.
There are different options, of course, right?
Yes.
But you really invested in this particular conference.
Yeah, once I decided we were going to do this, just like every other conference, we decide we're going to do it. We're going to do it right. We're going to do it big. It's going to be successful. We're all in. The good news about the virtual conferences, who saved the most were our franchisees, our coaches, because they didn't have to travel, book a hotel, all those types of things. And our franchise or members, the same thing. They could save. So we invested very heavily to make that event special for them and give them an opportunity to save the dollars that they needed to save, not going to a live event for this year.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you hire companies that are specialized in this, and you've sat through some of the preparing for these, and having walkthroughs and on stage types of setups and so forth, but yet virtual. So it was a learning experience for sure. Thankfully, we hired a good company that was able to facilitate that.
Yeah. Hardcore preparation, by the way. So one of the takeaways for this virtual conference, I've done a lot of virtual conferences for our clients this year. In fact, you are one of many who have had to make this decision. And by the way, kicking and screaming. There's not a single client that I have that was excited initially about doing the virtual version. But the way that you do it makes a difference, right? And you happen to make a big investment in your audiovisual company. Honestly, of all the different run-throughs that I've done for live speaking and for virtual, I might say, your team that you brought on wins the prize for the most preparation to make sure that this went off just perfectly. So there was a lot of work involved with all of the speakers, the presenters, those who were introducing. We had a green room. They built out a website. They actually went hardcore into delivering an online experience that felt big, right? Would you say?
Yeah, absolutely. It did have that feel.
It did.
And we've done all these live events. We've had them right down to the final day before it, where there was a hurricane heading towards the venue where we were having conference. So we've been through it all. This was the most heart-wrenching for me and for most of our team, just because of the moving parts were just amazing and all new to us.
Yeah. Oh, and I might throw in that the very last day of conference, we did in fact have a hurricane blowing right by Naples, and I was the speaker that day, and so it felt very nerve-wracking, touch and go. But here's what's great is we had backup plan after backup plan where the show would go on, and if for any reason the show didn't go on, we had another backup plan for that. So again, preparation, right?
Yeah. Over all the years, the thing that I kept saying to our team is, never let them see a sweat, and the show will go on no matter what.
Yeah.
And it always did.
And so now that you are past that experience and you can reflect on the entire process, everything from the decision-making to the conference itself, what would you say you liked best about this year's conference? What worked for you?
It's kind of interesting reflecting back on it, because it was emotional for me, and I was not in favor of it. There's no way I was going to be excited about it. But opening up and listening to our franchisor members and our franchisees and our attendees to hear their concerns and the things they were facing. When I look back on it, I'm just very, very happy that I took the time to do that. And I feel blessed that they shared, because it wouldn't have happened without them. Because I was just not going to let it happen. I had my foot down, and I was going to cancel the whole event rather than have it virtual. And so I was thankful that they shared and that they were committed to have a successful event without us being together. So that was a big step.
And so, by the way, talk about the successful event. Out of the how many franchisees you have who were invited, how many actually showed? I don't know if you even have those details, but like, give me high level at least.
I'm not the detail guy, but my team tells me that we had the far majority of our franchisees, our coaches, attend all the event. And the same thing for our franchisor members. We had, I think it was 89 or 90% of them. And then we still haven't finished the conference. We have a December part of it that's happening next with our franchise members that will finish off the conference here in December. So they're very excited about that. So.
Got it. So, all right, first of all, the numbers were extraordinary, right? I remember when we first were preparing for this, that there was the thought that we're not going to get the attendance that we would normally expect. And everyone across the board was blown away, not only by the fact that we had such a high level of attendance, but that they came back again and again and again. And by the way, I think this is a really important point to share. Terry, instead of doing a full day or multiple day conference, as you would have done if you were live, what did you do?
Yeah, that was another interesting facet that I struggled with, was to break it down into bite-sized pieces and spread it out over numbers of days and into their schedule so they could continue to do business, which when they go to a live conference, they leave their offices and go away for a week. So we wanted to give them the opportunity, because we had all this momentum building with all these clients that needed help. So we didn't want to take away from that. So we built it out so they could continue to do both and be able to, be there for the conference and break it down into bite-sized pieces.
And that turned out to be so incredibly well received. Yeah. And just the conversations even that were happening between the sessions, what kinds of things were you hearing? What sort of feedback were you getting from your attendees between sessions?
Well, the thing that was most fascinating to me is that many of them felt the same way I did and were expecting it to bomb. This just can't work. They've been to our conferences. You just can't do this virtually and do it a couple hours at a time. So the feedback was enormous. I mean, our franchisor members and our franchisees, coaches were just so open and dialoguing with us, supporting it, right from the beginning, because they knew we were concerned. But their experience, they allowed themselves to have that experience and then share that back with us, which gave our team the energy they needed to continue to drive this thing.
Yeah.
So it was a huge success. I mean, I can't believe I can even say that about a virtual conference.
Yeah.
It was a huge success, because I would have bet all the money in the world it was going to be the biggest bomb we ever had.
And what's amazing, Terry, is you and I were sharing back and forth. I said to you that I ended up getting more connection requests on LinkedIn and feedback, like message after message after message, like dramatically more than even some live events.
Exactly.
And so, and you said that you had experienced the exact same thing. Is that true? You were getting a higher level of feedback this time around than from your live events?
Yeah, probably in the area of 3 to 5 times more feedback.
Yeah. So that part's incredible. What do you make of that?
I think the fascinating part about this, I think all of them felt the same way we did, but they were committed enough to go along with it. I think they were blown away and amazed by the fact that it could go as well as it did, because no one really felt that it was going to. They were just supporting it, like our team does and our franchisor members do. But they were blown away by just how well it went off. So yeah, that was really great to receive that feedback.
It was so great. So I just want to reiterate for anyone out there who's still struggling with this, and maybe even you canceled or postponed. I know many clients just postponed their conference and they thought, okay, we're just going to put it in Q1 2021. And now people are still struggling with that because we're just maybe not there yet in some cases. So if you are someone who's already postponed, maybe you've canceled, you're trying to figure out what to do for 2021, I want you to seriously consider what Terry's experience has been, which is really why I wanted to bring you on, is to just share with others that, look, not only can it work to provide the kind of information and training, but it can be a massive success.
Yeah, huge success. Yeah, it's just amazing. I just would encourage everybody just to embrace it, not to be too concerned about the what ifs, because the nice thing about a virtual, you can always recover from it. You can come back and add in a piece later. You can cancel something at the last minute because they're not traveling there because something's not working. And we had a few of those, but not many. But it gives you a lot of flexibility to make it a success. So just embrace it and go with it. And yes, there's going to be roadblocks, and yes, there's going to be disappointments. But the final analysis, you've been hearing us talk about the way it came out, it's worth it. It's definitely worth it.
Awesome. It's so great to hear you say that. And I appreciate you taking the time to just kind of walk us through your journey and what you did to pull off an amazing conference, which, by the way, even included an awards night where people dressed up and have received awards. Is that right?
Exactly. Yeah, we even had the highlight of our conference live is always the awards night. And it's a big gala occasion, with stage and lighting and people dress up in gowns and everything. So we had to replicate that in the virtual, and everybody was just so, gracious to go along with it, and they wanted to do it. I mean, they didn't want to miss out on that. So we had an excellent awards night for our franchisees and our members who were getting recognized and things of that nature. So it worked out amazingly well.
So
the only thing that wasn't there was the alcohol.
Which they could bring their own.
They could bring their own. We encourage that. So
yeah. Well, I appreciate you sharing, and I do know that one of the reasons that this was such a huge success has to do with who you are and the team that you brought in to surround you, who gave it their everything. So I think there's we can't say enough about the team effort here, and that's really a lot of what made this conference a huge success. So
it was everything about the team. The team did a miraculous job pulling this off the way they did.
Yeah. So any other comments, any thoughts from you that you want to share with anyone else who's struggling like you were?
It's amazing for me to be here talking about this the way I am, because I was so dead set against this. Anybody that knows me out there knows I'm very strong-minded. When I make up my mind, I told the team, this is done, we're canceling this. I was dead serious. I wasn't going down this virtual event. So just be open-minded, allow it to, and listen to your team, because there's people there that see it differently than you do. I'm very black and white. I want things to be very much in order, and I want to have it exceed their expectations every year. And I just didn't fathom that it could do that with a virtual conference. And it did. I can't believe I'm saying it. It exceeded everybody's expectations.
Amazing. So, it was such an incredible event. I feel grateful to have been a part of it. My name is Heather Christie. I'm here with Terry Powell from the Entrepreneur Source. And if you are someone who's listening to this show right now, and you are part of a company that maybe postponed or even canceled your typical annual event, I'd love to hear from you about whether that's something that you would love to participate with virtually. If you think that somebody in your organization needs to hear this message and the experience that Terry and all of his franchisees had, please do share this message. This is the Evolve to Win show, and you can find us on your favorite podcast app or watch us on LinkedIn Live, as some of you might be doing right now. And Terry, thanks again so much for being with us today and sharing your insights and even your encouragement for other people who are no doubt struggling just like you did.
Thank you, Heather. Appreciate it very much.
All right. Have an awesome day.
You too. Thank you.
Take care.